I can tell you that question number one that we're finishing up on, why are you here, is probably going to be it's going to be asked in the phone interview. So it's one of the main questions. I mean, really, the first two questions that you'll probably get is tell me about yourself, and then why are you here? So you need to be able to answer those very succinctly. That brings me to question number two, which is what can you do for us? So when they ask you, tell me about yourself, they want to know what can you do for us, and they also want to know a question number four, which I'll get to in a little bit. But phone interview, they're going to want to know can you do for me? What can you do for our department? What can you do for my company? And the best answer to that is what you have done in the past for your past employers. And for this, you need concrete examples with quantifiable results. I like to call them SOAR stories, and you may have heard of SOAR or STAR stories or STAR. Let me explain what a SOAR story is. It's situation, opportunity, action, and result. And you set up the situation by using maybe 4 or 5 sentences to set up the situation of a particular story. And what we're talking about here are specific compelling stories of how you have affected the bottom line for the companies that you've worked for in the past. So you set up the situation, and if it's appropriate, I would want you to give the opportunity that it presented. For instance, if there is an issue with, let's say there's an outdated process that's taking a long time, and you are a process improvement specialist. I mean, you're really good at process improvement. So this outdated process gives you the opportunity to save the company 26% or a reduction in cycle time from 3 days, for like three weeks down to 3 days. So it gives you the opportunity to make a big difference in the process and improve that and make it much more efficient. And that really is only like one sentence, 1 or 2 sentences. And then the action that you took. And that action that you took, again, needs to be maybe 3 or 4 sentences. So you're explaining the situation, the opportunity it presented you, the action that you took in order to get it done. In other words, how did you achieve this? And then the most important part of a SOAR story is the quantifiable result. And that's a lot of times the part that people don't use. I heard that over and over when I was a hiring manager. People would set up a situation and they would give me the action that they took, but they didn't get down to how did it result in the bottom line difference for the company. Really, there are 2 ways that you can affect the bottom line. You can make a company money or you can save a company money. So you need to think with all of these achievements that you have that how did you make the company money through that contribution, or how did you save a company money with that contribution? Okay? And you really need to have 2 to 4 of these ready for a phone interview. And in a phone interview, don't save your best for last. You could certainly do that in a face-to-face, but in a phone interview, you've got to give your best stuff within the first 10 or 15 minutes. They need to know how greatly you have affected the bottom line of the companies that you've worked for. And so have 2 to 4 really impressive examples ready for a phone interview. Now, for a face-to-face interview, I recommend that my clients have 12 to 15 of these stories in their back pocket when they go in. So that, and you can write them out. Don't feel like you have to have everything memorized. I remember when I was hiring high-level people, and this is director, VP people, if they would come in with their portfolio and a written sheet, a typed-up sheet of questions that they want to ask me, and also if they have typewritten just a few words to remind them what their story is, especially if you put the quantifiable result on there, that's very impressive. It shows me that you've done your homework and that you're really dedicated to get this job. It also takes a lot of pressure off of you that you don't have to have all of these things memorized. So what I recommend to my clients is that with these 12 to 15 stories, you type up just a few words to remind you of what that story is, and then the number of the quantifiable result. So you always end that story in something like, well, and that resulted in, saving the company $1,200 just through that thing alone. Or if you're working for Sprint, it's save the company $1.2 million because they have such huge numbers at Sprint. Some of my clients are Sprint. At any given time, I'll probably have one or two former Sprint employees. So the hiring manager is going to use different questions to get to the answer to really what can you do for us. But it boils down to what can you do for me? What can you do to make me look good? I mean, that's a big one. What can you do for this department? What can you do for the efforts of this company? And the best way to answer that is what you've done for people in the past or for companies in the past. And then let's go into question number 3. Will you fit in? In other words, will you get along with our values and our culture here? That really is something that's face-to-face. They really won't know that until they meet you. But they want to know, are you going to fit in here? And so, when we talk about a face-to-face presentation, I would really want you to, a lot of people ask me this, I want you to dress about 2 levels above what you would wear to work every day. And I say that because there's a lot of different corporate cultures. Some, like say in the finance industry, everybody's in a suit and tie every day. So then you want to wear a particularly nice suit and tie, and you might even want to put that little hanky in the side and a very nice, expensive tie. If you can't do an expensive suit, certainly get an expensive tie. And for women, I would want you to wear a suit as well. Doesn't necessarily have to be a skirt anymore, but I would want you to wear a jacket, would want you to wear a suit. But there are companies out there that can pay you a lot of money that aren't necessarily the big corporate type. I know that several of my clients recently have gotten interviews and positions with a lawn care company that's big here in Kansas City, or Deffenbaugh, the trash company. So that corporate culture is a lot more relaxed, but you still need to wear a suit. You don't necessarily have to be as formal with the cufflinks and all of that, but you do need to dress about 2 levels above what you would wear to work every day, even if you would wear a polo shirt and khakis to work every day. Something that you need to do with the will you fit in question is that in a face-to-face interview, I think it's important somewhere in the interview to let them know what your values are, what your guiding principles are. Because if you don't let them know that, and you get into a situation where your values clash with theirs if you get the job, you're going to be miserable, and it's not a good fit. So you want to make sure that you let them know what's very important to you. I'll give you an example with a current client of mine. His name is Bob, and he might be on the call right now. But it's important to him to have the highest integrity where he works, because he actually left his last employer because of a lack of integrity. They weren't doing things above board. So he left because that's very important to him. So you know that in a face-to-face conversation, he's going to have to let them know that integrity is very important. And if integrity is not important to that employer, to that hiring manager, then that's actually going to scare them away, and he's not going to get the job. And that's a good thing, because it wouldn't be a good fit. So he's going to make sure this next position is going to be one with a company that has very high integrity. So will you fit in is number 3. Let me recap. Number 1 question is, why are you here? And there you have to be specific, and it's a good opportunity to show that you've done your homework. Number 2 is, what can you do for us? And the answer to that is going to be, give examples of what you've done for companies in the past. And again, be specific. Make these stories very compelling. Make them vivid. You can even use the first names of the people within the stories. That's really important. Make it something that they're going to remember. Number 3, will you fit in? So are you going to fit in with the values and with the culture of our company? So let's go on to number 4. What makes you different from everyone else that we've talked with? This one is really important. This is the key. The answer to this is your brand. And brand is one of those words that's been tossed around the last couple of years since the job market kind of fell apart, but it's something that I've been working on for 8 years, is developing my client's brand. Your brand is your unique selling proposition, and that's kind of a marketing term, but what it means is that it's your unique combination of your skills, of your experience, your achievements, and possibly your education. Nobody has your unique combination of those, skills and experience and education combined with the achievements that you've had. That's what defines you. That's what makes you different. So, for instance, when I write a resume, I like to boil those down to 3 or 4 core strengths, and those are things that set my clients apart from everyone else. So, for instance, I've got 2 current clients I wanted to give you an example of. One is looking for a chief operating officer position. He's had a COO position many times. So his 3 things that set him apart, what he wants to be defined as or recognized by, are his strong executive leadership experience, his cost containment with very impressive results. And he also has a remarkable track record of revenue growth. So he's done both. He's done the cost containment and revenue growth, and he's got the numbers to prove it. And he's had a lot of executive leadership experience. So he's really the complete package. Very, very attractive. Also, I've got somebody that I know is on the line right now who is a training leader. So his 3 things that set him apart is that he's a creator of compelling change. He's really a change agent. He helps companies that are in transition, that make changes. He has a reputation for consistent leadership success. So he's been in many leadership positions, sometimes with direct reports and sometimes with dotted line reporting, but he's had successes in all of those. And then he also is very good at training design, and again with impressive process improvement results, and he's got the numbers to back those up. So think about what you do, 3 or 4 core strengths that set you apart from everybody else. That's your brand. Now, you can use this with answering the question, the interview question, so tell me about yourself. So in the answer to tell me about yourself, I would want you to start out with a very brief overview of your background, your experience, possibly your education, especially if you have advanced education. You can lead off with, well, I got my MBA at XYZ University. And then I have 17 years of experience in this particular field, most recently with this particular company where I was doing XYZ, right? So it's very brief. I would probably prefer 10 seconds or less in just a few breaths. And then you go into your 3 core strengths. So what you can do is give that really brief rundown of what your experience is. Don't go into a lot of detail on that. They want to know what you can do for them. So bullet point, when you answer, bullet point those 3 or 4 strengths. So for instance, for my COO leader, he might say, I've worked in the technology field for the last 11 years, and most recently for a chief operating officer with a software development company. As a result of that experience, I feel that my strengths lie in my executive leadership experience. I've got strong executive leadership experience, and I've had a lot of cost containment results, as well as a great track record of revenue growth.